today we're rocking the camo on top and on bottom because I walked in to the office this morning and it was like 60 degrees inside, which is not that bad because this is a poured concrete structure, but the furnace is on the fritz. And while I took it apart really quick to take a look at it, and I'm pretty sure I know how to fix it, it can wait while I actually work this morning. So anyway, that said, we have a case that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention out of the state of Ohio that is pretty cool because it is an instance where the double-edged sword of Bruin and Rahimi have been thrust into the gun control apparatus and has vindicated someone on a Second Amendment challenge to a disarmament by the government. So that and more after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Excess Sights. They are my go-to source for tritium night sights. They are the sight company that I choose to put on all of my defensive guns. So they are the company that I have chosen to be looking at should I be in probably the worst situation in my life. So check them out, and I thank them for being a longtime supporter of my mission here at the VSO Gun Channel. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that they stand with me in saying goodbye and good riddance to Stephen Dettelbach, soon to be the former director of the ATF. So I guess what I want to start with this morning is when it comes to my ability to gather information, news, and all that sort of stuff and present it to you guys, I'm kind of like a spider in that I can see in a couple different directions at once, but really I'm limited by the depth of how far I can see really. But I sit on my web and put my legs on all the strands, and then when somebody tugs on one of those strands, I can go over there and focus that thing down, right? Well, the difference is that I have 408,000 threads through all of you folks. And basically at this point in time, you make my job so easy that I could basically be a completely blind spider and still get it right at least 3/4 of the time. So I believe the initial source of this information is actually Mark from Four Boxes Diner, given the timing. I believe that one of y'all saw his video and saw, hey, Kurt's an Ohio guy. Maybe he should hear about this. And y'all sent me the case. So what I would say is I listened to Mark's video on the way into the office today, and he does a really good job of the intricacies of how everything is interrelated from a legal perspective. He's an actual attorney, not one that doesn't even play one on TV, right? Although I am considering going to law school. I've had many people say that, I'll just put it this way. My brain works considerably better today than it did in my 20s when I was considering such things the first time around. So anyway, maybe we'll see how life goes. But what I wanted to talk about is this case out of Ohio that is the Brown versus Ohio case. And basically the elements look like this. Dude bro was under indictment for robbery. While awaiting trial for that robbery, he's under house arrest with one of those like ankle monitor things. And during a visit to his apartment, they find a loaded handgun. Well, in the state of Ohio, there's a law that says that you can't possess a weapon while under indictment. We'll come back to that here shortly, but the robbery charge falls apart and the case is dismissed. But the state of Ohio keeps on with the indictment for the possessing a handgun under indictment, or a firearm under indictment, basically. And that's kind of where the story picks up. That's the background. So we pick up at the appellate level, and basically to distill it down, what the court says is the law that is being used to prosecute Mr. Brown for having a weapon while under indictment is not very old. It's only been on the books for 50 years. It is not a very common practice in that there are only 3 states in the union that do this, Ohio being one of them. And it is not within the text, history, and tradition of the United States to do such a thing. On top of that, when you apply the Rahimi decision, which is the one where we had the bad cat that basically was a domestic abuser, all that sort of stuff, was literally shooting guns in the air and waving them around, stuff like that. Not a good guy. That decision says that in order to disarm someone, even temporarily, keyword temporarily, not a lifetime prohibition like currently exists with felonious activity, you must be convicted of the crime by a court of the United States through a jury of your peers, not an indictment. An indictment is really easy to get. And here's the thing. I have been asked to serve on a grand jury on more than one occasion, and I always get out of it. And if you ever want to get out of serving on a grand jury, it's very simple. When they send you the form, and on that form, it'll ask you, if you should be exempt from this service, you say, I would be happy to do my constitutional duty and ensure that there is a check against the government's power to prosecute somebody for a crime that they may or may not have committed. No, not that guy. Because a lot of people show up to the grand jury and they're basically like, oh, well, preponderance, maybe you could have done it. If you tell them that you're going to show up and say, no, I'm pretty sure the government is by default wrong, they're not going to have you in that room. Okay. So anyway, I digress there. It is relatively easy to get an indictment, and that is the whole concept of disarmament. You have to have been proven to be a danger to society to be temporarily removed from the pool of people that can defend themselves. Right? Again, keyword temporarily. Now, this is where I'm going to diverge in the story, because ultimately the court says, get out of here, state of Ohio. This is unconstitutional. And while this is a decision that has been made by an appellate court in the state of Ohio and really only applies to the state of Ohio in this specific case, this is another instance of something that could be used in the future to point to something. And I want to show you something very specific that touches you every single time you buy a firearm. If you've ever purchased a firearm, this thing should look very familiar to you, although maybe not, because they seem to have to revise the thing every couple months because they keep getting their pee-pee slapped every single time a case is brought to court, and they have to change the form because they have to delete stuff off of it or move it around because, what they've done is an overreach. But I digress. Let's scroll down to question B. Question 21B reads as follows, and I understand that it reads like somebody with a fourth grade education wrote it, but we are talking about the government here, so this is to be expected. Are you under indictment or information in any court for a felony, or any other crime for which the judge could imprison you for more than 1 year, or are you a current member of the military who has been charged with violations of Uniform Code of Military Justice, for whose charges have been referred to a general court-martial, ? Holy run-on sentence. You see here that according to the 4473, if you were to answer yes to this, then a federal firearms licensee would not be able to process your sale. Notice that it says under indictment. You have to go down to question C to get the convicted thing. Have you ever been convicted in any court, including a military court, of a felony, or any other crime for which the judge could have imprisoned you for more than 1 year, even if you received a shorter sentence, including probation, ? So what I'm getting at here today is, while the Brown versus Ohio case is not a precedential opinion, in that if a similar situation were to arise in another state somewhere, this would not be some kind of binding precedent where it's like, oh, look what the Ohio court said, game over, state. That's not how that works. However, if someone were to challenge the federal statute of indictment, so this comes up to a federal court somewhere, then this is one of the things that they could point to and say, look at how this Ohio court applied Bruin and Rahimi at the state level decision. We think that the same thing should be done with the federal statute. So this is another round in the magazine for going after these unconstitutional restrictions on your ability to defend yourself. Remember that the Constitution of the United States enshrines and protects a God-given and inalienable right that, unless convicted of a crime by a court through a jury of your peers, and you have been adjudicated a danger to society, may you be temporarily disarmed. Not, oh, we think you might have done a thing, so we're going to take your guns from you. What I mean is they got to prove it against you. And what I'm saying is that the federal statute and the 4473 that you sign every single time that you go buy a new firearm is out of balance with current Supreme Court precedent when it comes to Bruin and Rahimi. And I look forward to somebody going up there and kicking them in the balls. Anyway, I want to know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to go figure out what is wrong with my furnace. Have a great day, everybody.